several hosted trips together. Isn't it a wonderful experience to go on a group river cruise together with a host like myself or you, or in this case, Jeanette Pringer or Shane? It's a wonderful way to really get to know people in that intimate, wonderful experience that only a river cruise can do. Don't you think that's one of the highlights of river cruising?
It is, Mark. Thank you for asking. It is absolutely wonderful to travel with a group because there's so many choices each and every day that everyone can do their own thing and then reunite in the afternoons and have a nice glass of wine or a good cup of coffee and talk about what they did that day. There's lots and lots of choices and something for everyone. And it's always wonderful to travel with people that have a likeness of yours. So yes, I love traveling with groups.
Well, I mean, I do too. Again, like I say, it's become my favorite way of vacationing. And I would say to you all who are watching today, especially if you've never river cruised, I really encourage you to give it a try. There's been a tremendous popularity in the last about 8 to 10 years towards river cruising. People just absolutely love it. And there is, gosh, almost a 97%, a little over 97% satisfaction rating. And honestly, AMA Waterways, which is why we use AMA Waterways for so many of our groups, has the highest satisfaction rating of any cruise line. And Marcy, explain to our audience today what people like best about the river cruise experience.
Mark, there's so many things, but I think one of the things is that there's no big crowds. We have lots of space per person. The ships are small with the maximum capacity at about 160 people. I think that because we offer up to 6 different excursions each and every day for them to choose from, and they don't just get to do one. They can put as many as will fit into their program or their schedule for the day, and those are all complimentary. And then I go into something so important because I think food is very important when you vacation, and we have a 5-star rating across our ships for food, service, accommodations, everything, but our food is second to none. The culinary experience is amazing on board. And I could go on and on. How about the beautiful destinations that AMA has that are exclusive to AMA? We have different cities that we're the only river line that have approval to go in and do our excursions. And the accommodations, so beautifully and well pointed, very spacious, so everyone has enough space in the accommodations, no matter what category that you are looking at, but you have lots of different types of accommodations available. We have the highest rated ships in Europe by Berlitz, which we have for six years at this point. So, I mean, I can keep going if you want me to keep going.
I think let's do this. I was just told, since I don't have the pictures on my screen, Jeanette Pringer, have you joined us?
Hey, Mark, how are you? Hi, Marcy.
Hi, Jeanette.
I am so glad to introduce Jeanette Pringer. She is a friend of mine from Weatherby Lake, where we both live. And Jeanette's been just a wonderful philanthropist in the community and a big supporter of Park University, a former Board of Trustees president. And Jeanette and I got together out on Weatherby Lake one time and said, hey, let's do this. And one of the reasons why we opted to do this, Jeanette, tell everybody you've got some history with Portugal as part of your family's background, right?
I do. I'm half Portuguese. I was born there. My mother is Portuguese, born and raised there, and actually met my father in Portugal. They lived in Portugal and Spain. So I was almost 5 when we moved to the United States, but I go there annually. I was just there in November, and I love going to Portugal, the food, the cheese. The Portuguese people have something very unique that other European countries don't commonly do. They watch TV with, and they love American TV and movies, and they watch it unedited. So they have learned American English very well, especially in the big cities. They have the Portuguese subtitles underneath. So you find a lot of people who do speak English, which for people going to a different country, and Portuguese is a little bit different than Spanish. Sometimes it's a little daunting, or you might think that as a negative, but you don't have to worry about getting around. The food is amazing, and this particular river cruise, I've been wanting to go for so long. And when the opportunity came up and it being able to benefit Park University was a no-brainer. I'm an alumni, I'm an immediate past chair, and I love Park University. Our international program and what we do is really important. And I would love for people, whether they know anything about Park University or not, just those that are having a little wanderlust and wanting to get out, I think this is a really safe and unique way to take a trip and be able to see another country that gets a lot of popularity. And there are a lot of expats from the United States in Portugal. Obviously, if you're a fan of port wine, it's a good place to kick off a river cruise.
Jeanette, I'd like to say, if for those people out there watching, if you know me, you know I'm very outgoing and I love to be around people. And if there's anybody more outgoing and better with people than me, it's Jeanette. So no matter whether, Jeanette's right, whether you have any involvement with Park University or not, we encourage you to join us and go with us. And one of the things I was telling Jeanette when we were talking about this Douro River trip in Portugal that I had a chance to do about 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, and I took maybe the most well-traveled group of people I'd ever taken with me, because so few people know anything about Portugal. And when that trip was done, these well-traveled people, I think I've never been on a trip outside of one or two where their expectations were exceeded as greatly as they were in Portugal. Jeanette, from your very comments about the people themselves and how hospitable they are, how wonderful they are, the food quality while you're there, the wine, and of course port while you're there, but the history, people forget about the history that's in Portugal, don't they?
They do, they do. In fact, if you fly in, more likely you'll fly into Lisbon. I highly recommend coming in a few days early. There's nothing worse than missing your first day at sea because you try to slide in, come in hot, so come in a couple of days early. Lisbon does have the most Western Catholic church built on an old ancient Greek temple, and it's so unique. The history is amazing, but come in, travel up. The railroads are safe. Like I said, a lot of people speak English. Porto itself is a very busy city, lots of wineries to visit before or after the wine cruise. And I think people would find also that the music scene is very interesting, and they'll have a good time because Portuguese people and some of their best bands love mimicking American music and or American bands.
You know, I must tell you, I'm smiling because it brings back such good memories. And Marcy, let me ask you about this too, but it's interesting because the river's a little bit smaller, a little bit shallower. There's a little smaller vessel that travels there. We will be on your Amavita, and that's smaller than the ships that are on the Rhine and the Danube, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It only accommodates 100 passengers rather than the others that are between 140 and 160. So again, still very spacious, beautifully appointed accommodations, lots of space per person, just less people.
Marcy, you and I were talking here maybe a week to 2 weeks ago when we did that webinar, and you were saying that the Nile River and the Douro River are the two most popular rivers as far as selling out the quickest. Is that right?
That is totally correct, Mark. You know, we up until 2 years ago only had one ship, the Amavita, on the Douro River, and it was so popular that we built another ship and put it there. And I was so excited because I thought, oh goodness, we get double the capacity. Maybe I'll be able to find a stateroom. Well, the second one filled up as quickly as the first one, and absolutely, it's one of our destinations that you must book soon. Sooner rather than later, because it is so very, very popular.
And I will ask Jeanette this question because I think it is so cool, and I'm so happy you did this, Jeanette. I gave you the choice of which one you thought you would like best, the new ship that goes just round trip Porto, or the one that goes all the way through Portugal and then on into Madrid, Spain. And you picked that one, and I'm so glad you did, because I've never been to Madrid. I can't wait to go to Spain on this, so we get 2 countries for the price of 1.
Well, I have had friends talk a little bit about, oh, that seems like it's going to be a little inconvenient. By the way, they've already signed up. So the reason they signed up, if you're already going over to Europe, typically you don't just go to one city. You have now a chance to maybe fly into Lisbon or another city, stay a day or 2, take in those sites, get to Porto, do the river cruise. Now you're in Madrid. Enjoy a couple of days in Madrid. You can take the train into Barcelona or anywhere else, really. Fly into Paris, London. I like to go to Europe. I do the trifecta. I always try to visit 3 different countries, and you can do that very effectively. By the way, it doesn't have to cost very much, because once you're in Europe, those European airlines are very budget friendly. And so you can do 3 cities in 12 days, 12, 13 days, and be able to make good use of your time and money.
Well, exactly. And by the way, we have a wonderful flyer if you'd like to take a look at it, with the pre-package in Lisbon or the post-package in Madrid. And we can customize this trip any way you want. For example, if you take Jeanette up, and I think that's a wise idea, man. You've got 1 airfare. If you've got the time, go ahead and spend your kids' inheritance and see as much of Europe as you can. Because seriously, whether it's the plane or whether it's the high-speed trains, which I personally love, you can see it's just so close. It's like a lot of our states over here. But I really encourage you. This trip will be October 25th through November 1st. And by the way, in Portugal, that is a perfect time weather-wise to be there. And it's the shortest flight from the United States to Europe, because Portugal is the closest country to the United States. So there's so many reasons to go. If you have never been to Portugal, let me encourage you. As Jeanette knows, and as I know, you will absolutely fall in love with Portugal. You will, if you've not done the river cruise experience, you'll fall in love with the river cruise experience. And then again, like she says, getting to see Madrid is kind of like, having your cake and eating it too. It's the best of all worlds. And then there's great flights out of Madrid if you opt to come home immediately. So we can help you with whatever it is on this trip. And I have forgotten to go through this. Here is a really good map of where Porto is. And just so you know, we did not have Lisbon, but Lisbon is south of Porto right there. But if you look through, because Portugal is really a fairly narrow country, but there are so many places that I bet you've never heard of that are absolutely going to exceed your expectations. And this is what I said earlier on. So many people heard of Lisbon, and you might not know much about it, but you've heard of it. But it's when you get to these little other places that you will find just so charming and full of history and beautiful. The scenery in Portugal, by the way, it's one of the prettiest rivers I've ever cruised, because of the mountains on each side of it. And because wine is such a big deal in Portugal, along the river, there are all these mountains where everything is terraced. The vineyards are terraced up on both sides of the river. It's absolutely spectacular. I think you'll just be so impressed. And again, if you've not river cruised, every time we stop at a port of call, or even in Lisbon or Porto, there will be included tours for you to take advantage of. And in most cases, there's many different tours, from wine tasting to historical to culinary, or the combination of all of that. There's just something for everybody. Maybe you're real active. Maybe you want to do a bike ride or a hike. There's lots of that available for you too. But I will tell you this, the wine tastings in some of the vineyards there will arguably be as impressive as any place in Napa or any place you have ever been in the world. I know I did this before, and it was just spectacular. By the way, in Ragu, that Holy Staircase hike, I did not know that was a pilgrimage area. And oh my gosh, it was just amazing. And then to hear the history of all of this is just so special. So the experience is just going to be like none other. And again, I told you about the history that maybe you didn't realize, but the Portuguese really kind of ran the world for a couple hundred years. So there's so much history. There's the Holy Staircase right there in Regu. You'll just be amazed at that. And again, there's pilgrimages there every year. Oh, here's the Terrace Vineyards. Isn't this picture? Jeanette, doesn't this just look like Portugal from the river? Isn't this just gorgeous?
It is. It makes me a little homesick.
I bet it does. Makes me want to have a glass of Portuguese wine right now, too. The river is so beautiful, but this is also the scenery that you see almost the entire way through the country of Portugal. Just so beautiful. I mean, it's so breathtaking. I asked Nicole to put in a couple more pictures so you can get a good feel of what you'll see and experience in this area. It is just breathtaking. You see some of the color changes, and we may or may not hit the color change time. Remember, we're a little bit south, but we'll hit great weather time. Quinta, and I studied that because I wasn't familiar with that word, Jeanette, but I understand it's like a farm home or a villa or a farmhouse type setup. Is that correct? The quinta?
Correct, correct.
Wow. See, I know Portuguese. You'll get a chance. And by the way, this is the other thing. And Marcy, let me address you on this. AMA Waterways does such a great job in giving people a feel of the culture. And wine is such a big deal in the culture of Portugal. Don't you see yourself sitting right there? And Marcy, it's really true. AMA Waterways knows people like the cultural feel, and they're going to get to see and experience the culture when they're on an AMA Waterways cruise there, correct?
Absolutely, Mark. One of our biggest goals is to always allow our guests to immerse themselves with the local pleasures, whether it's culinary, whether it's wine, whether it's taking a hike, whether it's visiting the castle at the top of the mountain. Our ultimate goal is for them to really get to experience what the local people experience and what the local people do and what the local people enjoy each and every day. And I certainly believe we do that on this sailing as well as all of our others.
Yeah, I agree too. I look at this and oh my gosh, Jeanette, it just makes the stress of daily life just kind of go down. Just looking at this picture, you just feel relaxed, don't you?
Well, I'm looking at it, and of course the white I'm assuming is the Vinho Verde, which is crisp and sparkling, and the alcohol content is very low. The thing I like about Portuguese wines, a lot of wines in Portugal and Spain, it's against the law for them to put preservatives and sulfites and some of the things that you find in our wines that give you headaches or may make you not feel very good. And the alcohol content, other than the port, is a lot lower. We also have a lot of people that have gone on these cruises and really enjoyed the food and beverages, and they don't drink. So that's a true testament to the creativity of the way they serve their food and the many things that they offer. By the way, tea was brought to Portugal via China and Japan, and there's quite a few plantations with the voyages that were done to Japan. So you were right, for a couple of hundred years, they were in the Asia, Africa, South America. So the cuisine is going to really surprise you.
Agreed, totally agreed. In a scenery and setting that's great. Yeah, there are many people, oh gosh, you don't have to go on this just to experience wine. And if you're like my wife is off drinking right now, and she just has loved this itinerary, and you can do this very easily without having to have anything. There we go. I guess I should have gone there. I look at this, Jeanette, how many people would this be served for? The picture on the left, would that be like family style?
That would be family style, and I can see the grilled octopus in the upper right-hand corner of the left picture. They have their different potatoes. They love potatoes. They love beans, but their meat and their seafood is amazing. They do pork very, very well. Their portions are generous, but what my husband is always amazed at how much he eats when he's there, but the food is so flavorful. Obviously, being next to the sea, a lot of volcanic area like in Italy. And so the fruits and vegetables are just so flavorful, and you walk a lot. So you come back well, let's just put it this way. We've never gained weight when we go to Portugal. So that could be, that might change on this trip since we're making sure we hit all the wineries.
Well, I mean, you know, the real reality is that you are right. People stay much more active on a river cruise, and AMA Waterways offers those options. But even most of the tours, and not most, but in a lot of the tours, you have the option of walking to the city. The cities are right there in the heart of where we stop in many cases, and people do end up getting more exercise than they normally do in the course of a day. I know rarely, and I'm like Kevin, Jeanette, I enjoy food and drink a lot, and I rarely gain weight. If anything, I lose weight while I'm there, but there's so much. Nicole and I picked this picture right here because I think I mean, all of you know what Tuscany is like, and you think about the little old medieval villages on top of a hill with a cathedral and a fortress and a walls around there. And Portugal is the same way. Most of Europe is the same way. And I just think there's so much history like this everywhere. And just the beauty. Look at the mountains, the rolling mountains and hills in the background. I think it's just gorgeous. And we are very likely, hopefully, to see some color changes while we're there. This is my point right here about the guided walking tours and hikes. There's all of this available if you so opt to choose that option. And that's the one thing that AMA Waterways does so well. They give a lot of options because they know there's a lot of different people with different tastes. And a lot of times, hey, listen, like my wife and I will have different things. I love history, love history, especially if I can get history with wine tasting. So I'll go do that. Mimi might do a culinary or a cultural experience. And that's totally up to you to do whatever it is that you'd like. The other thing, in many cases, if the ship is there all day long, they'll do a tour right after breakfast, bring you back before lunch. You have lunch on the ship, and then you can go back out and do another tour in the afternoon. Now, in many cases, I bet, Jeanette, you do the same thing, and I bet you'd recommend this. Gosh, when you're done with that morning tour, ask your guide where a good local restaurant is and go experience the local restaurant for lunch. I mean, don't you think that's a marvelous idea?
Well, and now it's so much easier than when I used to go with my parents. You can actually Google. A lot of places are rated on Yelp in Portugal. So even if if you're, a little bit concerned that the guide might be telling you some place where he's a little more familiar, it's very easy to Google those local restaurants and cafes that the locals enjoy.
Yes, and by the way, on all of these tours that you do, AMA Waterways employs local guides that live right there. And so they know that area. And I will always ask, I'll ask the cruise manager on board what his favorite non-touristy restaurants are for lunch in wherever we are. Then I'll ask our guide, whoever our particular guide is, what they would recommend. And then if one of those restaurants overlaps, I know I've probably got one that I should choose. But there's so much going on. Hey, by the way, here's the pre-package. If you want to go to Lisbon for 3 nights before we begin the trip in Portugal, it's $900 there, as you see, which is a great price when you think of European hotels in big cities, because Europe can be very, very expensive. Portugal is very, very reasonable, and these will be at 4.5 to 5-star properties. They will include breakfast, and they'll include city tours too. And then I'm going to try to do this customized. I want to take you up through a place called Tomar, and Tomar has one of the most incredible fortresses, walled cities with a cathedral in it, where the Knights Templar had a big headquarters in that area. So there's so much to see and do, and just trust me, I'll make sure you enjoy this. And I recommend, like Jeanette said earlier, that it's always good going in ahead of time. It gives you a chance to not only get over jet lag, but it also gives you a chance to see that special city like Lisbon before we go to get on the cruise in Porto, which is north of Lisbon. Then at the end, you can fly home after there is an overnight. There is an overnight when we get to Madrid from the end of the river cruise. But if you want to stay for up to 3 nights or longer, AMA Waterways has that package too, which I am going to do November 1st through the 4th. Again, $900 for the quality hotel, for a city tour, breakfast included. Honestly, it's a very, very good value. And then to Jeanette's point, you can take trains, you can go wherever you want, and we'll have less planned at the end of this in Madrid. We'll be very good about putting things together on the fly if you want to go with a group. A lot of times by the end of a trip like this, people are sometimes a little toured out and want to do their own thing, and we're going to make whatever you want available to do for you. If you want to stick with the group and do things, you can do that. If you want some time to yourself, you can do that. So I'd say, gosh, just give us a call at 816-741-7417, and I'll be happy to go over this with you. And if you're just tuning in, one of the things Jeanette Pranger said, she's an alum of Park University. I was on the board at Park University. Jeanette just got off the board. Are you off the board? You just got off you were president of the board, Jeanette, correct?
I was the chair of the board, so I'm the immediate past chair, and I'm still on the board and still very motivated to make sure Park University alums, graduates, those that support us, and our international programs, I hope they'll seriously consider this amazing package.
Agreed. And I have the baseball field named after me, so we've got history with Park. As I said earlier, we're going to donate part of our proceeds back to Park University, and we really want you to join us. I think you're just going to love this experience. I know you love Jeanette, her husband Kevin, and Shane Smead and his wife. Myself, I'm just so thrilled to be doing this again. I promise you'll have a great time. Marcy, it's one of the best itineraries in the AMA Waterways fleets for satisfaction, isn't it?
It is, Mark. It is. As all of our itineraries have a little bit of character of their own, this one really shows you the history, the beauty of it. Again, you get to immerse yourself in the local culture, the local people, the local sites, everything beautiful that you can even imagine this region has. And one thing I always like to include is this region was established, over 2,000 years ago with the eruption of a volcano. So when we were looking at those vineyards, it is absolutely, that's not just a picture, that's what it really looks like. That is the true beauty of what you see in this region, and it is breathtaking. I cannot think of a time that you don't look out or look up or look around and think, oh my goodness, this is absolutely so beautiful. And Portugal has become very, very popular with AMA Waterways, of course, but also just Portugal, the country itself, because there's so much to see and do. And like you said, Jeanette, which is so very true, the people and the culture, they're so very wonderful to greet us with open arms and teach us all about their culture and their beautiful foods. This is another thing. Oh my gosh. Yes, it's fantastic.
Well, I encourage you to join us. I'll tell you what, I promise you there's nothing more comfortable than being with a group of people, especially with people like Jeanette and Kevin, with myself, with Shane Smead, his wife, and the whole group that are going with us. I think you will find you'll make new friends because it's very easy to make friends and acquaintances on these ships. But most importantly, I think you'll have your expectations exceeded in all ways. But I would tell you this, it's going to sell out. We have till February 1st on this, so we need you to give us a call or check us out online and make decisions. All you have to do is deposit if you want to go, and then your payments will come up in between February 1st and then. But we have to give any space back that we have held. We've got about half of our group allotment sold. We'd love to have you join us, and then we will have a document party before we go, and Jeanette, you'll get a chance to meet Jeanette and Kevin and Shane and his wife. And if you don't know me, myself, there's a $1,500 deposit. That's all it takes. If you want to do the pre or post, that's a $250 per person deposit. And then we'll tell you the other parts of the financial setup too. We will also go over travel insurance. We think this is the time that travel insurance with a cancel for any reason waiver is a very wise thing to do, and we'll go through all of that with you too. Okay, well, I wanted to say thank you, Jeanette. Thanks for joining me today. We had to do this on a holiday to get you. You're a workaholic, kind of like I am, and I thank you very much for taking time out and being with us right now.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Marcy, for educating us. I'm so looking forward to this, and the people who've already signed up are very excited about getting to understand and know more about, our traveling into there and how we can have a really great experience actually in 2 countries, Portugal and Spain. Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
I just love it because you'll be like our own private kind of guide to give us some special insight about Portugal that we wouldn't get otherwise. I think that's wonderful.
I'm looking forward to it.
We are too. Marcy, thanks so much for joining us today.